David, thank you so much for meeting with us today. I know probably right now, like many people in the world, you're having to do all kinds of pivoting right now with your organization and with what's happening in the world. And so I wanted to have a conversation with you regarding C19, its impact in Steinbach, and how specifically it's impacting our senior population. But maybe before we jump in that, I'd love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do in sort of your area of influence within Steinbach.
So I'm the CEO for both Steinbach Housing, which is Fernwood Place and Linden Place. And I'm the CEO for Haven Group, which is Rest Haven Care Home, Woodhaven Manor, Parkview Apartments, and Cedarwood Supportive Housing. Those 6 facilities provide accommodations and a varying degree of care to about 450 seniors in the city of Steinbach. So that's about 25% of seniors age 75 or older.
Okay.
So there's a lot of dynamics within our complexes from, like I say, it's from independent care to personal care.
Right. Yeah. And how long have you been doing this for? What's your stint been like so far?
Well, it'll be 12 years starting this fall. So my background is nursing. I'm a registered nurse, and over the years I've gone into administration.
Okay.
And so what I really appreciate the opportunity to work with seniors is that they have been the forerunners for us. They have been the ones who have built this community. They're the ones that have been the torchbearers for the faith perspective.
Yeah.
So when we look at our senior housing facilities here in Steinbach, both nonprofits and Steinbach Housing and Haven Group are faith-based nonprofit organizations that seek to respect seniors, forward the faith perspective, and truly, literally care for each other and journey with each other, and seek to make sure that our fourth quarter kind of years are ones that are rich.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm curious to know, since the beginning of sort of this announcement of C19 and some of the government implementations of shutdown, what does your world look like trying to sort of navigate through these times? And curious to know what are some of the things that we could expect our elderly population to be experiencing during this time?
Well, first I want to say we're very grateful that we have been able to work with the provincial government in regard to setting boundaries.
Yeah.
I think we can define them as restrictions, or we could say that they're protective boundaries.
Yeah, I like that.
Protective boundaries is really that we actually, along with government, care about where our seniors are at. So we're seeking to create an environment that is safe for both the residents and tenants, also our staff. And to date, I'm very pleased that we have not had an active case either on the tenant side or on the staff side.
That's awesome. So, that's so great to hear.
Yeah, praise the Lord for that. I think for us, again, on particular on the housing side, is how could we structure our facilities, set in kind of these guidelines that would allow people to be safe, yet carry on as many things as they normally do.
Right.
Or did. And so obviously, a lot of it pertains to social activities.
Okay.
So we were required to remove all our volunteer programming.
Okay.
We were required to shut down our in-house chapel services. We were required to shut down the puzzling and the games and the Bible studies of large groups and the like. So those were all meant not to take away activities, but to protect tenants living with us. But then so those were some of the key initiatives we had. But at the same time, tenants still need to have home care visit. They still need to have groceries. They still need to get their medications and the like. So we put in place a scenario where we strongly encourage them to minimize this visitation, but keep connected. So, so for the primary needs that they had, a primary caregiver was encouraged to be established for each of those tenants.
Okay.
And I think for the most part, people have been able to do that.
Yeah.
But we still have some programming internally. So our chaplaincy services have continued, meaning that there's still some visitation for those that desire it.
Okay.
Happen. And that's from an in-house chaplain. And we actually, at one of our sites or two of our sites, increased the amount of time on chaplaincy, so there was support that way.
Okay.
As it relates to other programming, we have a tenant resource program coordinators in each of our sites. And what they do is look at new ways of doing programming. So you might have heard about the hallway cleaning that has happened in a few places. Some of the coordinators are working on where people can do certain kind of games that either fill forms and then submit them, and they can still do these activities. Where tenants want to connect with family members or other loved ones, we can provide the FaceTime kind of tools to do that.
Okay.
Where people want to listen to live stream worship services like that, we can coordinate that with our staff internally, should they not be able to do it on their own.
Yeah. So
it's trying to do all the activities that we did previously, but in a different way.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that those things actually fully satisfy the needs of seniors in our community.
Right.
I think that they'd like to see the face. They'd like to feel the touch.
Yeah.
They'd like to get the hug.
Yeah.
And so that's what they miss.
Yeah.
I think that one of the key things that we need to be aware of is doing it for what I call an extended snowstorm is one thing. I think we have moved past the blizzard,
right.
And I think we have moved to an extended winter.
Yeah.
And the extended winter, and I'll be honest, I feel for our seniors. I actually believe that the long-term consequences could manifest themselves later on.
Okay.
And I think the key thing is not that they weren't safe, not that they didn't have enough food and that type of thing, not that they didn't have some interaction with people, but I think the whole psyche, the emotional, mental well-being, the spiritual well-being of being people that are meant to be in relationship and close to each other is a component that I don't believe is fully addressed. So when we go into past a blizzard situation and we go to an extended winter, what will that look like for the seniors long term?
Yeah.
And so we need to find new ways of connecting with them and making sure that they're not lost in the shuffle of all of this.
Yeah. I'd like to maybe just drill down a little bit on, because you had mentioned, with the sort of constraints on some of the social activities that you put in place as a protection mechanism. Tell us a little bit about, in your observation, and I know before this interview we had mentioned, like, it's hard to really cast a picture of everyone broadly, but I guess if there's any observations you have about the sort of mental health or how our population of elderly people are reacting to this, what are some of the things that they're feeling? What are some of the things that internally are happening?
Okay, so I think, again, a lot of seniors, I would say, live a kind of a semi-isolated life to begin with.
Okay.
So they have key touching points of relationships maybe on the weekend or particular days of the week.
Mm-hmm.
But many of their normal life is already kind of semi-isolated, I would say. Again, it varies between some people, some extremely so, others less so. Some families are connected better than others. So I would say that for those families who are very relational, are very connected,
Mm-hmm.
see each other daily in some situations, those are the ones that I would say probably feel it quite differently than those that have periodic or less frequent touch points.
I see.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm not sure I answered the question, but
yeah, no, that was perfect. One of the other things I was sort of thinking about in this is some of the sort of signs and symptoms of things that family members or people who are supporting can look out for. What are some of the dangers? What are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the behaviors that that should alarm us or that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah. So this will be one of the challenges, but for the primary care person coming in who maybe delivers the groceries or does a check-in once a week or just to make sure things are okay, is an affect, is a mood, of the person. Are they less engaging? Are they less relatable type of thing would be key. Is there how they keep themselves in the sense of cleanliness and that, is that deteriorating? Do they look more frail? Are they not eating as well? Because a lot of wellness in seniors has to do with two things. One is eating well and fellowshipping or being having relationships going. That's whole social atmosphere. Those two things often determine the health and well-being of a senior.
Okay.
And so I would be really, that would be flags for me is there a deterioration happening? Now, sometimes what happens, though, and it's just a caution for those that come in to not overreact, is that sometimes when we see people less frequently, we actually think, oh, they have aged, they look more frail. But that may not actually be true. It's just that we haven't seen somebody for a bit, and we have a new set of eyes looking on the situation. But I think those would be the key things. Are they willing? Their social connections. Are they willing to do that?
Yeah.
And are they physically and mentally? And so I guess it would be, and that is not totally abnormal, because with our population, there is often over a period of time, some people will naturally deteriorate in their capacities. That's part of the aging process. And so it may not be related to being under restrictions per se.
Okay. Well, let's move to a bit of a practical note. If and I think that there's many people out there who are both curious about the well-being of our elderly population, which you've done such a great job to address. But also, what does it look like for family members, for church members, for the community to help out, to reach, to connect, but also to protect sort of the health and the safety of our elderly population as well. So maybe, is there anything practical that you feel like we could do?
Okay, in regards to the personal care home side, I would say that, and again, I don't know how many from your congregation is in our care home, but overall for the personal care home side, there's a few things. Obviously, speaking to our staff, contacting the facility, they can share greetings, they can share that type of thing. Their Southern Health for the entire region, but also us specifically, has a program going. If you go to their website, it's called Well Wishes. So people can actually go online, state what they want to say in writing for this particular person.
Awesome.
And that gets sent to us. And then we have our daily life program people actually go to the person and deliver it.
That's so awesome. Okay.
So in a similar way, we don't have per se that well wishes program for our housing sector, but we have tenant resource coordinators, which I believe you have maybe the contact information for.
Yeah.
That people can send well wishes that way, and we will then make sure that they get that.
Yeah.
The other thing is a lot of our independent seniors have telephones. Some of them might even be on social media.
Right.
Some of them, a number of them are on email. And I would just strongly encourage writing letters of encouragement and connecting with them. And you know what? Even if it's 1 or 2 lines, the value of the motive, the intent to actually connect carries huge weight.
Yeah.
I know some grandkids are FaceTiming with their grandparents.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because the grandparents love to see faces, real people. And if they don't have the technology, that is, the seniors don't have the technology, for sure, we can work that out.
Okay.
And so that's a huge thing. And even if family members, let's say there's family members outside of Canada or outside of province, they can't necessarily travel here, but actually doing a FaceTime can just be a huge thing. So I think that we want to facilitate that. Obviously, Canada Post is still active. People can write letters. Grandkids or whomever can send pictures or do artwork or that type of thing. It can still come that way. So there's just a variety of things that we can actually do. Now, with the key events like Mother's Day coming up and stuff like that,
right?
Why not try Zoom?
Right.
Why not try some of these social media venues? And you know what? If my mother-in-law, who's 86, can actually learn to do Zoom, I think we're underestimating what they can do. So let's work out those options for them. And of course, the primary caregiver that interfaces with them can also, connect with them and keep them in school. Yeah.
Could you describe maybe also some of the sort of spiritual needs, being it that we're, a church, what are some of the spiritual needs look like? And then also maybe even, is there anything practically that we can do to help fulfill some of those aspects as well?
Well, spiritual needs would be is that there's still in our independent living complexes, there's still a good portion of those tenants who would normally attend church services.
Yeah.
And they would do that particularly in the summer season. And so I think that I don't know if live streaming is an option. You might have live streaming, but do they have the capacity to do it?
Yeah.
But if there's a live streaming thing or just a YouTube video, we can also run that for them internally.
Yeah.
I would say that if there are family members concerned about their loved one and they would really like a spiritual care visit, I think under reasonable circumstances, we would work that through. So the pastor could contact our site, and we would work through, that individual scenario, saying, okay, there's some challenges here, so we would consider that under compassionate care or extenuating circumstances. We would then, would require the person attending the site to go through maybe a series of questions, just like you have to do in a number of sites, and then maybe ensure that the visit happens in such a way that there's social distancing and we're not dining together, but we're still meeting the spiritual care needs that the person may have.
Yeah. That's great. I also want to just to briefly mention, you sent out a letter to the pastors in Steinbach, which, by the way, thank you so much for doing that. That was incredibly helpful. It was very clear and concise in terms of how we can react and help. One of the statements that you made on there I felt was very intentional because it was in big, bold letters. and you said on-site visitation is strongly discouraged at all the housing complexes. I just wanted to give you a chance to unpack that a little bit. What's going to happen if someone shows up to a housing complex? What's the rationale behind that?
Yeah, again, I forget the exact date I wrote that, but we were at the beginning of the COVID-19 experience. So our concern at that time was that we were going to perhaps get into a very severe situation. So I think the motive behind what was just put into the letter saying, you know what, if we get COVID-19 in our building, it could impact many seniors in very short notice.
Right.
So there was a bit of we need to really clamp down here.
Yeah.
I think so. We were trying to decrease the amount of public traffic in our buildings.
Yeah.
And so our tenants stayed largely to their suites. Families reduced their visitations, and then additional public coming to our facilities was really minimized.
Yeah.
And so I believe that Manitoba has been able to have minimal cases based on following those guidelines.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there was never an intent to disconnect the spiritual, pastoral, chaplain kind of support.
Yeah.
But we recognize that we needed to do it a different way. Yeah. We're now heading into, with the easing of restrictions, we have to reconsider what will transpire over the next weeks. Mm-hmm. I think by the end of May, if our numbers stay low, I think there will be an easing of some of the restrictions. And what might that look like? I think what it might look like is that maybe a few additional visitors may be allowed for each tenant, but still kept to the suite. I don't think the social program wing will go forward as early as increased visitation.
Yeah, okay, that's great. That's so helpful. That really helps clarify some things. And I know even for us as a church, we're also beginning that conversation of what does reopening look like? How do we tackle this? We've never done this before, and we're trying to also keep people healthy and safe at the same time too. One other question I was just pondering is, what are some helpful resources that you would point people towards to help in this time, or do you have any resources that you put out? Would there be anything that you would recommend for anyone?
Well, obviously, COVID-related stuff, where the restrictions are, there's a provincial websites, right? In regards to other materials right now, I would say it comes down to an individual basis, really. How people cope. Like if people have mental health concerns, you go to certain sites. If you have spiritual stuff, you go to certain sites. So I don't know if I want to indicate something specific.
Sure.
That let's not restrict. Let's not. If there are emerging matters, emerging concerns, emerging health issues, let us work together and say, how can we do it in this season?
Yeah.
And then we find the appropriate resources. Obviously, as a believer, as a Christian, I believe that much of who we are and how we respond to the season we in can be found in how Scripture speaks to how we can rest in our Lord, and how we can navigate the season. I always say to my staff and the like is that the Lord is not surprised by this season.
Yeah.
He knew it.
Yeah.
And He is our source that I think, need to go to first.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was, just curious to know, if over time our church has financially helped out Haven Group and Steinbach Corporation. If anyone during this time finds themselves with some extra financial resources and they wanted to help out, what do they do? How do they practically maybe get those into your hands?
Yeah, so we we have actually had some corporations, not locally so much, but in Winnipeg, who have donated kind of the laptops and the like, or the iPads,
Yeah.
which is helpful.
So you've been taking in
I,
some technology aspects of it too to sort of help as well. That's great. Okay.
yeah, so that's been very beneficial. I think that if there are individuals or entities that would like to support us, I think whether it be for Haven Group or Steinbach Housing, the Haven Group Foundation would probably be the source to go through.
Okay.
And let's say there was a particular area that they wanted to have addressed, saying that we would like to support this or whatever. They can't do it for the individual, but they can do it for a program going forward.
Yeah.
They can just designate it as such, and we'll honor that. So most likely the vehicle would be the Haven Group Foundation.
That's great. Okay, great. Well, I just want to thank you so much for being able to just come on here and chat. I'm guessing, like many people right now, as a CEO, you're very busy and you've got lots of burdens that you're carrying right now. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of our church and all of our members, that we're so thankful that there's people like you who are in a place where you're caring and you're concerned and you're taking action, and we just want to just continue to bless you guys and thank you so much for the hard work that you do.
Well, thank you, and thank you for caring about our seniors.
Yeah.
General society doesn't necessarily do that as much, but thank you for your church and for your support over the seasons.
Yeah, no problem. Well, thanks so much, David, and we really appreciated being able to talk with you today.